Good morning, Robin Strong in here with Health Dame, and today I'm very pleased to be in conversation with the second Jared Brown that we're talking to here at Health Dame, and it just goes to show you it's a very small world. Jared Brown, I'm going to have you do most of the talking, although I do have about 5 million questions because you really have a lot to share with our audience. We'll get to the part where you have undergone some serious brain surgery and are now in law school and doing some incredible work on and advocacy work near and dear to my heart. But you started out in food packing, I believe it was. And so you saw firsthand the needs of coworkers, the need to advocate for people. Your mom had a serious illness. You saw the need to advocate for people without health insurance. And so I'm going to let you tell us a little bit before the surgery about your understanding and personal experience in the healthcare world. Why don't we start there, Jared, if you would?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about these very important issues. You said you're going to let me do most of the talking, and I can do that, but it's really hard sometimes.
Understood.
I'm originally from North Carolina. I had a very good childhood, very fun, but my life kind of changed in the fifth grade. My mother got diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It was the summer of '96, and that was scary because cancer is always scary.
Sure.
And, she overcame it. They did the surgery, and they took out the cancer, and, she moved on, but the problem is that she had this huge bill, her and my dad, and, it took them 20 years to pay off this bill because being the way they were, they, felt like if you have a bill, you have to pay it.
Mhm.
And so they were financially responsible, and they wanted to pay this bill, but that put financial pressure on everything else because
Of
money that
course.
we would have used for other things went to that. And so, that affected my childhood in a lot of ways because things that I wanted to do or things that I needed, we didn't always get because a lot of that money was being diverted. And so, as a kid, I learned about that because of something that my mother went through. But the most important thing out of that story is that she made it through and she got to live for another 20 some years and be happy. So, and I always told her, like every year, I reminded her that she had another year without cancer, and that was great.
So you were close to your mom, you had a good
But
relationship with your mom and dad?
well,
I
I
know
had a
it's
very close
hard, but
relationship because of my parents,
yeah,
and but throughout life, we always have times where, relationships are sometimes strained, but they're my parents and I love them. And I'm very close with my dad now. My mother's no longer with us, but I always loved my mother and I was always very,
wonderful, wonderful. And so fast
she,
forward. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off. I
no, I'm
apologize.
sorry. I was just going to say she spent her life nearly 50 years taking care of children, caring for children. She was a teacher, a
Oh,
preschool
wow.
teacher. She was not like I am, politically active and a public advocate, but she, cared for people in her own way, and she did good in her own way, and I've done it in my own way, and my brother and sister do it in their own way, and, so that's what I took from her life. The
That's
only
really
thing that I've
lovely.
ever
Yeah, that's lovely. I love that. My mom was a teacher as well.
the only thing that I've ever found about her where she was politically active where is a letter to the editor that she wrote saying that the local city should put in crosswalks so children wouldn't be in danger when they cross the street to get to school. But
Wonderful.
she was a really good person.
Oh, that's really terrific. I love hearing those stories. So, what brought you to Wisconsin? You made your way from North Carolina to Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. So I was living in North Carolina, I grew up there, and when I was around 20, I was working for my family's tile and marble company, and I knew I wasn't going to become the owner or anything like that. And so I wanted to just go out on my own and see what I could become. And so I went out west and I lived in Arizona and then I lived in Alaska,
Wow.
I lived in Kansas and Wisconsin, and I traveled to these places for work. I went to Alaska to work in the seafood
Yep.
processing industry. I was in Kansas for the meatpacking industry, and Wisconsin also because there's meatpacking there.
Yeah. Yeah. And were you in Wisconsin when you first got very much involved in unions and advocating for other workers? Because I know you did quite a bit of that.
Yeah, that started very early on. It started in 2007 when I was in Alaska
Oh,
because they were my coworkers who were J-1 visa holders. They came from different countries from around the world, mostly Eastern Europe, and I saw things that happened to them that weren't fair and that weren't what they were expecting when they came here. And so I helped educate them about their rights just on my own. And then after that, I was involved with unions, and then later on with a lot of political groups.
oh, very cool. So it's no surprise that you had an interest in law
But I think
school.
like in yeah, I always had an interest in becoming a lawyer. Like even when I was a kid, I was kind of a strange kid. I was really interested in the news and politics and history and the current events of the times. And I was just that way. Like I like to sit with my grandfathers and talk to them about the news when I was like 8 years old. I was just that way, and so I guess I naturally gravitated towards that. I did not get the chance to go to college like most people do, the 4 year experience, but I eventually got there. It just took me 20 years.
Okay, you got there. Congratulations. Yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Yeah, I was in, like, I had taken classes little by little. And then in 2020, when COVID happened, a lot of things were going on at once. I was working, but I also was kind of thrusted into the spotlight because of the workers' advocacy that I had done. And, media outlets came to me and wanted to know how workers were being affected because they were front lines. You can't butcher a cow from home like
No,
you can do a lot of work.
yeah. Not a remote kind of job, is it? No, it's kind of hands-on.
That's exactly right. And so I talked to them and I I tried to educate the public about what was happening with them. And then political groups came to me and had the opportunity to work with a couple of public health institutions to share information with them that they could use to help share with the people they work with, which was companies and
Yeah.
public, to tell them how to protect workers. And I gave some speeches to universities, including a law school, before I even had a master's degree. And so I've always been willing to share what I know for whatever it's worth to try to help other people.
And so along the way, you were studying for the LSATs, getting ready to take your entry exam for law school. You realized you did want to go to law school. You figured out a way to make it happen. And then, boom, something unexpected and life altering happens. Tell us about that little turn of events.
Yeah, so I had to work for a really long time to earn a 4 year degree and then a master's degree, and that I would take that step. And it's a really big step to take.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
And
is.
so I signed up for the LSAT and I was excited about it. And I was, all ready to take the exam. And then just a few days before, I had a pretty life changing event. That day, I had gone to the Green Bay Packers open practice. I went to a baseball game.
Oh my God.
I had a nice dinner. I rode my bicycle. It was a great day, just like any other day. And then that night, as I was winding down, I had seizure. It felt like a bolt of electricity, and I called the ambulance, and they came right away, and they checked me out, and they said, "Sir, you have a headache," and they said, "We can take you to the hospital, but you have a headache. We don't see anything wrong." And I said, "Okay." And so I was going to just try to go to sleep. And then it happened again.
Oh,
And I hit my knees and I had to crawl to the door. I had to crawl to the door to unlock it so they wouldn't kick it in. But I called them back and they took me to the hospital, which was only 2 blocks away, but they drove me 2 blocks and charged me like a lot of money
yeah.
to go 2 blocks, but several $1,000s. But I got to the hospital. There were no obvious signs of anything wrong. But eventually they said, "Mr. Brown, we found the mass." And I said, "What does that mean? What is that?" And they said, "We don't know yet, but we'll tell you soon." And so I think it was the next day they came in, they said, "Sir, we found this mass." And we talked about it and they told me that it was not small and it was very serious. And the doctor said that they had to remove it or I would die. He said
Right.
it in those words. And so when he said it like that, that made the options pretty obvious.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Yeah.
And so we went with the first one, which was to remove it.
Yeah. Good move. Yeah.
And I'm glad we did, and I'm glad that he was the one to do it, and that all the other people that were involved were there because it worked.
Amazing. Wow, unbelievable. So it was a large brain tumor. They removed it. You obviously were not able to take the LSATs when you thought you were going to be taking them because you were coming out of surgery. And then lo and behold, I guess you end up taking the LSATs because you just finished your first year of law school in Arkansas, right? Am I correct about that? And have a clerkship this summer too. So you,
That's right. It was a tangerine size brain tumor. I guess you'd probably say something like one of those clementines or
yeah,
MCs or whatever
that's
they call it,
pretty big
something like
for,
that.
yeah.
It was nothing small, and, before it happened, it's really scary because, like, they told me, there's a chance you could lose your physical abilities or cognitive abilities for your life, and they, offered to bring in the clergy, a pastor, priest. They offered to, help me with, all my final documents, wills, and all this kind of stuff, make sure that any final wishes I had would be taken care of. And on my own, I made a 18-minute video that I put on YouTube and Facebook and social media where I talked about things that were on my mind,
That's you'll have to send me a,
everything else. And
yeah, so I can share that. Oh my,
it's on that link that I sent you.
okay.
It's
I'll
on
make
that link
sure
that
it
I sent you,
goes.
the Jarrett Brown presentations.
Okay,
You'll
I
see
have
it.
that. Yep, I
Yeah.
will make sure.
And
Yeah.
so I talked about all of those things to share
Y-
my last thoughts. If
Yeah.
I did not have the opportunity to speak again, if I would have come out differently. But yes, so I made it through. I think the night of the surgery, I woke up. A friend was there. I shook his hand. I tried to hug him, but he wouldn't let me because I was connected to all these
It's
things.
just too many
And
things.
I was able to talk with him. I was able to talk with him, and I knew I was going to be all right. And the next day, I did have a seizure that was pretty scary for everybody. But since then, I have not. I wasn't really in the hospital very long. I think 4 or 5 days after that.
Oh my God.
I
It's not,
I made very quick progress. I was able to pass. They bring in speech therapists and physical therapists and all sorts of specialists, and I was able to respond quickly and respond well to that, very serious health issue. And I'm proud that I was able to do that. But most of the credit goes to the doctor and to all the doctors, several of them, and all the other healthcare professionals there.
it is a team effort, isn't it, when it's something like that? So, but you must have been in pretty good shape too, because you ride
It
your
really is.
bike,
It's
you do your, physical work you were doing. So you were probably in good physical condition before the surgery, probably helps. But nothing like a good, strong team behind you to make sure. But coming out of it, did you still have this desire to go to law school or more than ever now? Now you were even more motivated or what was your thinking?
That's right. Well, to answer your earlier question, I was scheduled to take the LSAT on 115 of the day of the surgery
Oh my God.
at 150, but I couldn't because I had to go into the surgery at 115. And so I had to delay it. And I didn't know if I would be able to take it. But after everything worked well in the surgery, I rescheduled it and I took it 28 days later. And my friends who are very well-meaning people, they said, "Jarrett, you should not put yourself through this. The LSAT, it's a very long test. It's grueling. Requires a lot of reading and thinking, analysis." And they told me to give myself more time, but I just wanted to see what I could do, and so I did it. And I was able to get into law school, and so I applied to some law schools, and there were like, I applied to 10 law schools, and there were some that I don't know, but I believe that they may have made their decision in part or in whole based on the fact that I had a very serious health issue. And I didn't get into some of those, but I got into two, and I chose University of Arkansas at Little Rock Bowen School of Law.
Yep.
And I'm very grateful that they gave me the opportunity, and I'm very glad that I'm here now.
Well, me too. What an amazing story. And it's just at the beginning, really, in many respects. You're doing a clerkship this summer, and I think you shared with me, tell me if I'm right, that it's a nonprofit. So you can do some of your advocacy work for rights of people who maybe don't have a voice. Tell me a little about that, if you could, the clerkship work.
Yeah, so the clerkship is something that I'm very excited about because they're competitive. Just to get it, it's actually a fellowship, the public service fellowship, summer public service fellowship,
Oh my God.
and these are competitive. So like we have a lot of smart people, people that are smarter than me, and we're all trying to get the same jobs. And I was offered this one, so I'm excited about it. I'm working with an agency actually. I'm working with the local public defender and helping those people because in our system,
Yeah.
sometimes things happen that are unfortunate or nothing happened, but everyone has rights and both sides. If there's a victim, the victim has rights and the public has rights and anyone accused of anything has rights. And so I'm excited about that work because it will give me an opportunity to be there for people in a time of need when things are, not working out the way that they had intended, and they feel alone, and they
Need the
need
extra
someone to
support.
just be with them and to
Yeah.
support them however they can.
So, how hard was the first year of law school? I hear the first year is just brutal.
That word that you just used, brutal, is the perfect word for
Okay.
the first year of law school because, like, throughout my life, I've never really been challenged academically. I'll do the reading, listen to the lecture, take the test, and make an A, and it works out great. And I thought that's how law school would be. But law school, they just give you so much work.
So much reading. I'm a very slow reader, so
The
that would
authors of the books aren't listening, but it's dense and it's boring, and um, a lot of it's not like easy to understand. It's not like reading a fun book,
yeah,
and so it's hard work just to read it and just to understand it, and then you're tested on this massive amount of information that some of it you've never been introduced to before, and so it's just hard, because there isn't much time, but there's a
yeah.
lot of stuff that has to be done, and so it's like the long, grueling days, like early in the morning till late at night, I'm studying, and then you have cold calls, which are like they use this thing called the Socratic method, so the
Yeah.
professor just like, "Mr. Brown," and they ask you a very tough question in front of all your friends, and you have to answer it on the spot,
My
and that's incredibly hard for me because of what I went through with the brain tumor. I'm really good at analysis. So if you give me some information, I can look at it and analyze it and give you a very good answer. But if I have to just pull something out of my head or out of the sky, it's really hard.
yeah,
I don't have the recall that I once had when I was a kid. I can remember every little thing. I just can't do it anymore.
yeah.
Um, so that's been tough. It's been a challenge. It's been humbling in a lot of ways because, I think of myself as a smart person. I think of myself in very good ways academically, but it kind of brings you down a couple notches.
Well, the fact not everybody gets through the first year of law school, from what I understand. So, not only that, but you received this very competitive fellowship. So you're doing something very well. You're determined. You really want to make this happen. You obviously have the ability to do it. And, more power to you wanting to help others along the way. That's not a reason everyone goes into law school. Believe me, I live in DC, so people go into law school where I'm surrounded by attorneys of every possible reason of existing. Some of them are to help others, and some of them are, for other reasons. We'll leave it right there. But what I wanted to ask you was, I know you mentioned the crushing debt that your parents went through with this medical giant bill. And you mentioned the ambulance was very, I mean, healthcare is very expensive in this country. There are reasons why it costs so much money. Some are very valid, most are not. And the last thing we ever want to do is deny somebody the care that they need because they can't afford it. That's not what this country should stand for. So in the work, what do you think we should do with healthcare moving forward? I know you have some opinions about single payer system. You're an advocate for single payer system, I believe. Am I right about that, Jared?
Well, if I were king, yes, if I were king for a day, we would have a, single payer system, but I'm not, and that's not going to happen. So I believe that our healthcare system is imperfect, but we need something. We need some means of having access for everyone, so that if something terrible like what happened to me or what happened to my mom happens to someone, they can go to the hospital and get whatever health care they need. Am happy that at the time I wasn't going to sign up for it, but I signed up for the Affordable Care Act insurance through the Affordable Care Act
Yep.
exchange because during the pandemic I had Medicaid because of the way that upended our ability to work. I was on Medicaid, but then that ended after a couple of years. And so I got on the Affordable Care Act and I had my insurance. And I'm very glad I had it because I was able to, it was like no questions asked. They're like, you have a healthcare problem, we're going to help you. And so I was able to get this surgery and stay in the hospital for all those days. And I'm very glad that that happened. But after I was, I like to say that, the bills beat me home.
Yeah.
So after I left the hospital, it was right around that same time that I got home that I had bills, and I can't exactly remember. They might have already been in the mailbox,
Yeah.
but very soon after I got home, I started dealing with that, and there were lots of bills, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bills. And I'm not a person who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was making $50,000 at the time, so this is like a deluge. It's like, oh
It's
my gosh, how am
overwhelming.
I going to do this? But since I had insurance, you know, out of pocket, I think I would have had to pay 9,000. I'm still paying on some of it. I think I still owe around $5,000 from a couple of years ago, almost 2 years ago. But I've had to pay little by little here and there and get rid of a lot of them because they don't send you just one bill.
No,
They
they
send you
don't.
like a
No,
bill from
they
every
don't.
single doctor and all
It's
these different.
unbelievable.
And so, like, I was trying to figure that out and trying to make sure that all the bills were correct and trying to, ask questions about what is this even for? Like, what was the service and all this? And it's very confusing, and you have to call all these different numbers, and you have to have all of these different accounts to log in.
Yeah, they don't make it easy. It's not user friendly.
Some of the that's right. Some of the organizations are like hard to reach. You have to wait in line for an hour on the phone, and they only operate certain hours of the day, and so it's just hard, especially when you're trying to go back to work. You're trying to move on with your life, but you're dealing with all of these healthcare related things. So I'm not the only person that's experienced this. Anybody who's had you know an issue has had to deal with this, so I'm not alone. I don't need pity, but that's what's going on for me and for everybody else. But we need something, and hopefully, like we can over time make improvements. Doesn't seem like that's very likely right now with the administration, the federal administration that we have, and in some states, we're not getting a whole lot of help. But we have to just keep pushing to try to make things better for ourselves.
Exactly. I mean, that's our motto here, no matter how challenging things are out there, people still have to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work or, it helps us, it helps others, and that's the only way we can move forward. Otherwise, everything becomes impossible and we can't ever let that happen. So, I want to thank you for everything you are doing, for sharing your story with me today, for taking the time to talk. And I can't let you go until I ask the final question, which I ask all of my people that I interview, which is the song that best reflects
You kind
where
of froze
you
up.
are and the work that you're doing. I know you said Lean on Me by Bill Withers, and no one else has selected that song. So that's your song for our playlist. I'm going to add that today. So that's
That's
your
great.
song, right? Lean on Me,
Y-
and that's obvious why. I think that's great. You also said Johnny Cash, Johnny Cash, right? John Cash. Am I getting that right? Oh, I just
Yeah,
had, yeah. Man in
yeah,
Black, right?
right.
What is that one? What does that reflect for you?
Well, Johnny Cash, he was a strong guy, a tough guy, but he was known as the Man in Black, and he
Mm.
wrote this song. And if you listen to the song, it's very good. It says, it talks about the reasons why he wore black, and it was because of the poor and the beaten down, and all sorts of different people that he lists who are struggling. And he says until things get better, he's going to wear black. And black, I guess, is a symbolic color, but it's a positive song, and it's kind of different than what you might think of a guy like that, because a guy like that, you would think, oh, they're independent, they're just going to worry about themselves and do their own thing. And but he was talking about all these other people that he saw that he was concerned.
Love that. I'm gonna put 2 songs for you. I love both of those. So you get 2 songs on the playlist.
All
They're
right.
both perfect. So with that, I wanna thank you, Jared, and I wish you all the best, good health, continued success in school. Let's keep in touch. I will let you know when we have everything up on the website. I'll add all of the links. I cannot wait to dive more deeply, especially into the YouTube you did right before surgery. I have not listened to that yet, but I think that's a beautiful thing to do. And I'm really looking forward to reading that. And I just love your desire to help others in the world. That just is, we can never lose sight of that. And I just know you're going to make a tremendous, you already have made a difference in the world, but keep it up. We need more people like you speaking for people who don't have a voice. So thank you for everything you're doing, really sincerely.